Emirates and Etihad Airways are two of the most important airlines in the world, and both have a firm grip on the Middle Eastern markets. Over the past 7 years, conversations over the pair coming together have consistently appeared, and it's been quite the ordeal to follow. So we thought today on GlobeTrotting would go back in time and look at these discussions, comments, how it all came about, what the airline would look like, and why it ultimately didn't happen. To begin with, we must, as always, head right back to the start of these discussions, when, in 2018, talks surrounding the pair merging was met with significant headlines, described as the deal of the decade. If pulled off, it would create one of the largest carriers in the world. Bloomberg was the machine behind the said reports, saying that thanks to their sources, the pair were in discussion. Emirates at the time, though, very quickly came back and said it wouldn't be happening. But one ever-persisting report was that very merger. No matter what the comments were, it seemingly always popped up. Why is this? Fueled by Etihad's terrible situation at the time, which you can learn more about through our video on the downfall of Etihad Airways, there was talk about what would be a suitable method for the airline to survive. A host of people believed that while Etihad Airways had entered into a turnaround plan, merging with Emirates would be a natural good fit. As Emirates grew and Etihad Airways made investments in airlines, these would backfire on them. Almost all investments led to the respective airline collapsing. Etihad Airways struggled with increasing competition in a sector, with Emirates and Qatar Airways operating similar flights under, as previously stated, a similar model. Finally, we have rapid and large investments in fleet, which did backfire on the airline as they very quickly realized they didn't need all the aircraft that they had ordered, and that presented them with a pretty major problem. Sir Tim Clark, who is the Emirates president, has always remained adamant that the Dubai-based airline will not look to merge with Etihad Airways. This came even during the pandemic, as Etihad Airways began to emerge from its turbulent financial crisis. While this was thanks to a turnaround plan, which largely came off successful thanks to government backing, the next wave of difficulties hit. As long-haul travel saw demand collapse, talk said that the pandemic might be the optimal time for an acquisition on Emirates' part. However, Tim Clark said, very interestingly, Etihad Airways were a changed airline. This came following all the changes that they made during their turnaround period, which included downsizing, cutting routes, and emerging, and I quote Sir Tim Clark here, as a leaner airline. This means that the carrier is finally fit for its operations and sustaining itself as a business for the long term, whereas maybe in the past you could argue that it wasn't. These were comments from, again, Tim Clark, featured in an interview with Business Insider, and you'll find that in the sources area of the description. He makes some very interesting points around the Emirates and Etihad discussion, and of course, how the turnaround plan has really changed Etihad Airways, probably for the better. While the two airlines have in the past looked to collaborate and work together technically to a certain extent, Emirates taking wholly over Etihad Airways wouldn't seem likely at any point. Still though, you can never say never in this industry, with things changing at a drop of a hat, or a lucrative deal or offer coming through with not much knowledge. But for now, you can say that the pair will operate apart and remain ultra competitive, but also be good examples for the people of the UAE. Do what's right by them, and be a leading force on the international market front with a commendable service. This is something Middle Eastern carriers certainly pride themselves on, and ensure that they have a brilliant onboard product adjacent to a fantastic cabin crew service. Why this merger won't happen remains one of the more interesting conversation points we wanted to move to explore. Let's begin with the route network. The pair operate very similar route networks in such close proximity and having similar business models. This would mean that if Emirates acquired Etihad, they'd only be adding their presence at major airports, not necessarily tapping into new markets. If anything, frequencies will be dropped and not all aircraft will come across. Emirates has a route and also a fleet plan that works, and any additions would simply overcomplicate things and probably be detriment to their overall business for the long term. Customers wouldn't also actually benefit from a merger. Some believed yes, it would be a very good idea for the struggling Etihad Airways, as it would be a way to save them. However, it's the passengers that would likely feel the brunt of it. While already expensive, the heightened competition in the Middle East means that prices can remain at a level that's largely accessible. If there was to be consolidation in that market, the prices would only rise. This is why for airlines that are looking to consolidate, there is so much toing and throwing before approval can be granted, and one of the biggest stepping stones to overcome all of this is assessing and understanding the implications that may be had on the customers. Higher ticket prices are a nightmare, and if this was to be the result of a merger, it likely wouldn't be approved, or have a lot of significant pushback. It's why we've seen so many discussions involving the northeastern corridor between JetBlue and American Airlines, with many people noting that this would have many negative implications on the flying public and push out the opportunity for lower prices and or any competition to really come through. However, the opposing situation we can take a look at is Asiana Airlines and Korean Air, which at the moment have had it pretty smooth sailing, a few bumps in the road, but most regulators have been approving them, as I don't believe that they'll be a threat to any other customer or their market share, say in Singapore as an example. While there are negatives, and there are of course more than I mentioned, which could include a deeper dive into airports, politics, and more, analysts do say there could also be positives to such a merger, especially for the companies themselves, as reports on SEN and more saw the question be posed whether there was still a need for two UAE-based airlines, even after Tim Clark said that thanks to a restructure, Etihad Airways were finally fit for purpose. Many people believe that maybe there's no need for two based in the region. The reality is, as of 2023, the two airlines can operate away from each other while still collaborating, but forging their own path. And now it's over to you, our wonderful viewers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on a merger that has been discussed so much, yet also pushed back so much as well by various executives and more. What are your thoughts? Do you believe creating a mega airline in the UAE that's even bigger than already existing Etihad and Emirates could be the way forward? Let us know down below in the comments. Potentially taking a look at Saudi Arabia's expected new carrier, that being RIA. We thank you very much for tuning into this video. We hope you're staying safe, and we will see you next time.